Hello everyone, so today I am not in my room. Now in my last video, or the video that I posted I believe yesterday, I was outside and I received really good feedback on my video because it is a bit different when you are outside. It is of course, if the weather is good, it is definitely enjoyable. So I thought, let me just go out and make one more video somewhere out. So today I want to talk about fixed versions in Jira. Now in Jira, we all know that there's a field called fixed versions. And to give you some background about this field in Jira, let us say you're doing some software development and you're releasing something. Now when you release something, usually if you are working in software development, you want to associate your releases to your code, and that is where fixed version fields is actually very important, because fixed version field, if you are doing software development, you can use it to release something. For example, when you create an epic or when you create a story in Jira, you can tag your stories or epics or any task or any issue in Jira with a fixed version. And fixed version is not a simple field, because fixed version also comes with dates. So you would say in Jira that I want to release this particular story on this date, but I want to start working on this particular story maybe on this date. So there are two fields within fixed version called as a start date and also an end date. And at the same time, when we talk about fixed versions in Jira, we also have this roadmap view where you can actually take a look at the details of your upcoming releases. And when you release something, you can also, of course, report on it. Now, one thing that I want to talk about is basically the ability of Jira, along with some apps like EasyBI, where you can actually create a roadmap. Now, to create a roadmap in Jira, you need basically two fields. You need a start date and you also need an end date. And because fixed versions, they are ideal when it comes to software development, you can actually release something and you can also look at your upcoming releases and all the associated issues, some kind of a plan, some kind of a baseline that you want to save somewhere in Jira. Because if you want to, let us say, know as a release manager, as a product manager, as a scrum master, what all upcoming releases are there in your project, you can actually create a roadmap view, and that is something that you can do very easily with fixed versions. Now, the topic of this video is not just fixed versions. I also want to talk about what if you want to not release something. Let us say you're working on some task, or maybe you're working on some activities where you have an end date. Maybe you have a scope that by this date you want to deliver these 50 epics or stories or tasks. What if you want to finish something by a particular date, but you don't really have a software release? So in that case, you can potentially use fixed version, because fixed version also comes with, as I mentioned, two different fields. You have a start date, you have an end date, and there is also a status of a fixed version. So you can actually track whether the fixed version was released or not released, and you can actually look at the roadmap view. So that is ideal. But if you're not really using Jira for software development, what you can also do, you can always use maybe a due date, and due date is actually quite useful, because due date can help you understand what all things you want to deliver by a specific date. Now, due date can be used, and it should be used mostly for those cases where you have some kind of a deadline, right? Let us say, as the name suggests, due date means that you want to finish something by a particular date. But along with due date, if you want to create a roadmap, what you can also do, you can also create, if you are using advanced roadmaps, and I'm sure you're already familiar with it, there are also a couple of other dates like target start and target end. Now, if you're using advanced roadmaps, when you create a plan in Jira, or even if you're using normal roadmap, you can actually create a roadmap where you can say that I want to work on this particular epic or maybe a story, and I want to start working on this particular activity on 15th of June, and I want to finish it by 15th of September in the next 2 months or 3 months. So based on these two fields, start date and end date, you can create a roadmap. And if you're using, let us say, Jira work management, or if you're using Jira software, it is irrelevant if you are following Scrum or if you are not following Scrum. Maybe you're following Kanban or whatever methodology. When you have these two dates stored somewhere, not using fixed versions, you can actually create a plan. And I think Jira, because Jira is flexible, Jira is of course configurable tool. You can always configure it to, of course, create any fields. But if you have to create a field or if you have to reuse a field, try to ask your Jira admin if you have these two fields like target start or target end, and make sure you have these fields in your project for a particular issue type, for example an epic. Now there is also one more thing that I want to talk about. So we talked about fixed version start date and fixed version release date. We also talked about target start and target end. Now fixed version is for software development, mostly for code releases, and then we also have target start and target end for roadmap and for doing any work. But what if you want to do something by a particular date, but you also want to go live with it, and that go live may or may not be a software release. If it is a software release, then of course use fixed versions. If it is a deadline, then use a due date. But if it is not really a software release, or if it is not really like a deadline, then you can always create other fields. So you can always create a field like go live date. You can always create a field like implementation date. So I'm basically sharing these things with you because usually when you're using Jira, and if you are let us say a Jira admin or a Jira consultant, then you have to basically use the tool. Objective is to use the tool, but at the same time you have to deliver. And when it comes to delivering something, then you have to customize the tool, to adapt it, to modify it, to of course make it work for your use case. And that is the beauty of Jira. You can actually configure it, but how you configure it is not always simple and straightforward, and that is where I guess you need a consultant like me, or maybe you need someone who has a lot of Jira experience. So if you have any questions, do let me know. And if you have any feedback about this video, and by the way, right now I am in Canary Wharf. This is Isle of Dogs. This is a really beautiful place. Of course, you have natural beauty, but if you look on the right hand side, there are a lot of buildings, and that is where all the buildings are, where most of the banks, major banks of the UK are operating from. So do let me know if you like this video, and if you want me to make more videos not from my room. I can always go out for you. I can also talk about Jira, share my experiences, but also at the same time show you around, because it is always good to go out for a walk. All right, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.